1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wednesday show live, Royal Blue podcast soundcheck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hello and welcome to your latest Royal Blue podcast with me, Ian Croll. It is the Wednesday show. We are live on YouTube, and joining me in the studio today to talk all things Everton, we've got Chris Beesley and Paul Wheelock. Paul, it's been a while since you've been on the show. How are things? All good?
Good. Much better after a win on Saturday. It was when you asked me to come on earlier this week. I was delighted to. Yeah, it was a good day down at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we can we'll have the final word on Fulham, even though it was on Saturday. It's still always nice to speak about a win, even a few days later. Chris, it's only been 2 days since you were last on the podcast. Anything changed? Anything dramatic since then?
Not too much. Haircut after the show today, so that
oh, right, okay.
So not too much has changed. No, I try and freshen things up. Yeah.
Well, you're always here. You always make the effort, so
yeah.
All good.
Yeah.
Today's agenda, I'll give it to you in very quick list form. We're going to do the Fulham final word. We're going to speak about Everton's link with Ivan Toney, and we're also going to assess Everton's January transfer priorities. If we've got time, we'll also just briefly discuss Tyler Dibbling, and then after 11 games, we will assess the season expectations and what, if anything, has changed since the start of the season. As always, give us a thumbs up and drop us a like, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. And just a quick word for our sponsor, that is NordVPN. To get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/EFC. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. There is no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, and the link is in the podcast episode description for you to click on and explore. Paul, we've done 2 deep dive shows, I guess, on Fulham. We had the post-match show on Saturday, straight after the game. That was me and Tony, and then Chris and Joe gave their thoughts on Monday. So, we'll start with the final word with you. I mean, it's been a frustrating couple of weeks, hasn't it? I know we haven't had your thoughts on it, but frustrating couple of weeks. And even though you would expect that Everton to get that result against Fulham, I do feel like the victory was a little bit of a release, a little bit of a relief even going into the international break, where maybe we can just have a little reset now and think what we can do moving forward.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was much needed, wasn't it, for the team, because it'd only been 1 win in 8 before then, even though there'd been plenty of games within that, say the first half an hour at Sunderland, large periods of the game against Tottenham where maybe the team didn't get the rewards that they deserved. But I think it was important for the fan base as well, because obviously I've been watching your podcast recently and reading what you and Joe have been having to say in the Echo. And from my own personal opinion, I was getting a little bit twitchy, because that table is so tight. And again, that's not Everton's doing, really. It's just because this team's like Sunderland, who are, even Brentford, are exceeding expectations at the moment. And I was beginning to look over my shoulder a bit, knowing that West Ham had been having a bit of an upturn. Forest were always going to be an upturn, and we definitely don't want to be dragged into anything like that this season. And yeah, the mood, I think there were little questions beginning to be asked, wasn't there, over team selections and players who may or may not have been playing, and why, even as David Moyes said at his press conference on Friday and after the Sunderland game, why there wasn't that 90-minute performance. But if there were people like me asking questions, well, they were answered, weren't they, emphatically on Saturday? Because I know we can turn around and say Fulham didn't play well, which they didn't, but I thought Everton played really well for 70-80% of that game. I'm glad we switched it up a little bit in terms of the starting lineup. It was nice to see, nothing against Jake O'Brien, really like Jake O'Brien, but I thought it was nice to see a bit of a change in midfield and put Garner to right back. And credit to David Moyes for keeping with Tierno Barry as well, because he had a tough night, didn't he, after his miss on Monday night, but that was justified. And so, yeah, listen, if there were questions being asked before the game, I'd say they answered them, and it was a good win. I was really pleased.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, it was a good win, even though I'd say the goals that we did score, I don't want to describe them as lucky, but we did say that it was more of a battling performance and stuff like that. Was there anything that most encouraged you about the Fulham performance compared to what we've seen previously?
Yeah, the control of the game as a whole, and we've talked about. It's been unfortunate because obviously Manchester City away, they should have been maybe a couple of goals up at half time. They played really well. Iliman Ndiaye probably had his best 45 minutes in an Everton shirt at that point. You know, he was outperforming all Manchester City superstars, and then keep Haaland quiet for almost an hour, and you know, he's Erling Haaland, he needs that one chance. I mean, James Tarkowski said at the time it was a soft one from them. You know, you give anyone an opportunity like that, but you know, somebody like him, best centre forward in the world, and it's game over, isn't it? He gets another one 5 minutes later. So you had that game, Manchester City, then Tottenham Hotspur, where they'd started well, undone by the set pieces for the first time in a long time. Obviously, the last Premier League team to concede from a set piece this season. Soft goals again, and then all of a sudden it's back-to-back defeats. You go up to Sunderland, start really well there. Another wonder goal from Iliman Ndiaye. Then they're clinging on a bit towards the end. So you've almost come to the end of that little section again between the international breaks without a win, and as Paul said, that other teams have maybe picked up behind you as well. So yeah, it was much needed. So to see them do it for the best part of the game, to control the game, and then just when Fulham were coming into it that little bit more, David Moyes makes those in-game changes and the right ones, and he switches it round to keep that control and obviously go on and get the important second goal towards the end though. So it was the overall picture of how they were able to control the game and look dominant more or less from start to finish, because that's been the problem. They've played well in patches, but just not been enough to get those results and that points tally that you'd have liked to have seen from them. So yeah, it was their overall control of the game for me.
I asked Chris what has encouraged them. I'm going to ask you, was there anything that worried you? Even though we got the win, is there anything you thought, or we really need to improve in that area?
From Saturday, not particularly. No, I thought Keane was excellent again. I thought Tarkowski had a better game.
Yeah.
Mikalenko, I think we spoke in the office on Monday. There was that time where he put the ball behind for a corner because I don't think he got a shout, and then gave a pass away a couple of minutes later. But apart from that, he was solid, because I think he's been beginning to be more critics within the ground of him. I thought Dewsbury Hall, really like Dewsbury Hall, but I'll be honest, I think in the last couple of games before Saturday, I think Carlos Alcaraz was a bit harshly treated. I think he should have been getting more game time. Maybe Dewsbury Hall could have been the man to come out of the team or come off earlier. Thought he was excellent on Saturday. Barry showed loads of good things. No, I'm struggling, apart from just the absolute horrible spectacle that is VAR and scoring 5 goals on Saturday and not celebrating one. I truly didn't celebrate one on Saturday until after the goals were given. I can't stand it.
Your eyes literally, when the ball hits the net, literally looks over to your left or right, doesn't it?
I know all the talk is about what happened at the Etihad on Sunday, but believe you me, from a viewing experience, every goal, even the ones that were counted, I turned down to my dad and I was like, wait a minute. Yeah. And you could see the ref looking at his watch or doing something like that. It's
you definitely can't enjoy it, can you?
No,
as much as what you...
On that, I was reading a piece with Tony Pulis in the BBC today, and I agreed with him. I'd gone further. He was talking about how long it takes. He says, when VAR was brought in, it's supposed to be stopping your Diego Maradona hand of God moments, or your Thierry Henry for France against Ireland, those blatant moments like that. He has suggested, Tony Pulis, obviously the former long-serving Stoke City manager. I mean, he gets a lot of stick maybe for the way, they're seen as being old school or whatever, but he said that I'd restrict it to 2 minutes. He says, if you can't see in 2 minutes what possibly might have gone wrong there, well, it's obviously not clear and obvious. I mean, I'd go further. I'd say maybe a minute.
Yeah.
Because like you said, as Paul said, for better or for worse, I mean, personally, I get rid of VAR full stop, but I just don't.
Yeah.
But I just don't see that happening now. The genie's out the bottle. I don't see how they're gonna go back with that, because I'd rather live and die in the moment of, like you say, that moment of a celebration or whatever. But yeah, I'd be willing to say, well, I'll accept a few bad calls or wrong calls or whatever, just so you can keep that spontaneity of enjoying the moment. But if VAR is here to stay, I'd say, well, fair enough. Pulis has said get it sorted in 2 minutes. We're saying mate, get it sorted in 1 minute, whatever. You've got the video footage there in front of you. If you can't quickly see there's been a clear and obvious error, well, it's not a clear and obvious error, and let's move on. For me,
yeah, it's opened up a can of worms, hasn't it? Throughout, I'm torn on it just because I don't like VAR, but I think there is still a valid argument to say as long as they get the right decision, I think you could argue in that case. But I do think a lot of the time it does take too long, especially with all the camera angles and the technology that they got. It is a little bit ridiculous. Just some comments here. So Kevin Kraft says VAR should be banned and it's spoiling the game. John Jones Toffee Man says VAR is horrific. So I don't think we're the only three who don't like it. What was the saying that we were talking about the other day?
Game's gone.
Game's gone. That was it. I mean, there's a lot of things that we could say about the game being gone, and VAR is definitely one of them. So yeah, look, it's spoiling the game without a doubt. The 2 goals that were counted on Saturday, you have that urge to celebrate, but then immediately you just look to your linesman, you look to your referee thinking, is this going to be disallowed? And Everton have faced a couple of those calls over the past couple of weeks, haven't they? And it's not ideal for a good experience of the game, certainly for youngsters as well. No. You know, we were brought up on the authenticity of football, and now it's a completely different game.
It feels like they are, and I know we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole here, it feels like I know they're not, but it feels like they're trying to find a way to disallow a goal now.
Because
everything.
You could probably find something in every goal that's ever been scored. Somebody shoved somebody somewhere.
Of the 3 that were disallowed on Saturday, probably 2 were rightly disallowed, but maybe the one was Barry really interfering with play for Dewsbury's.
I thought that was a weird one, to be honest.
It's just...
There hasn't even been like a big uproar about that, has it?
But like,
maybe we should be making more of it ourselves.
But
we won the game, didn't
across
we?
the park.
The point is, we won the game, so we're not complaining.
But we on another day we win 4 or 5-0, don't we? But yeah, I'm not even joking. That was my only negative from Saturday. It's just annoying that you can't always celebrate a goal now like that is. And we had 5 of them, didn't we, on Saturday?
Well, let's face it. I mean, we'll finish off on this subject, but even the Tarkowski goal that drew it 2-2 against Liverpool last season, I know the scenes were incredible. Everyone celebrated that, but even then there was a 3-minute, 4-minute delay.
It was ridiculous, totally ridiculous. Like you said, if it can't be spotted within a matter of seconds, for me, interesting. Somebody's put a comment in there. Seems to add to the game in cricket. Well, to be fair, in cricket's a game of it's stop start anyway, isn't it? But I think that's part of the reason why football, in my opinion, and in so many other people's opinions, is the greatest game in the world. Is because in a cricket game, you've got all those different wickets, whatever 20 wickets have got to fall over the game. If you see a goal in football, that might be the only goal all day. That's why football's the best sport in the world, because its unit of scoring is worth so much. It's not like basketball where you might score 100 points, or in cricket you might score over 100 runs. Yeah, when somebody scores, like I said, you might go to a game, there might not be any goals. So when a goal comes, that's why it's so important. That's why it's such a pivotal moment in that game, and that's why there's so much emotion comes out with it. Because you said it might be that 1-0 to the Arsenal, whatever.
Well, look at that Tarkowski goal. And obviously I've got blue tinted glasses on, but they were looking for a foul on Canate, weren't they, to push? And in real time, it was never a foul. It wasn't a foul. Pushes happen.
Contact sport.
But just imagine if that goal would have been disallowed.
Yeah, you can't imagine. I've been in trouble over this already.
Yeah, let's not go down that road. But it's just, it's just, for me, I would happily take bad calls again.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah,
fume and kick off about Mark Clattenburg performances, and have that rather than what we've got now.
I think as well. Just I keep saying we're going to finish on this. At least I know we're never going to go back to non-VAR. That's not going to be the case.
That's I completely agree. Yeah.
But at least if we did go back, then you could accept maybe the human error. You would be annoyed. There's plenty of times where prior to VAR's introduction where you think, oh God, this linesman or this referee, what type of decision? But I think now you might, deep down, you might be able to accept, listen, human error.
It's better than what we've just had.
Well, you would keep the excitement in the game, I think, and I don't know. It's obviously like I say, different game to what we all grew up in.
Yeah.
And I do fear for youngsters watching the game, to be honest, and the popularity of it. We'll move on, swiftly move on. I do want to speak about some reports linking Ivan Toney, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but to Everton. So according to reports yesterday, a number of Premier League clubs are believed to have started inquiries about bringing Toney back to England. It is understood that Everton are one of the teams to have looked into the situation, but obviously Toney's financial situation with his high wages in Saudi Arabia and the fact that he has a contract that runs until 2028. Chris, this is not the first time we've spoken about Toney on the podcast, so is this gathering a little bit of momentum for Everton, do you think?
It's certainly not gathering momentum, isn't it? In terms of the wheels, say in motion. But I guess as we come towards, the closer we get to January, as well as he did, and obviously he got the standing ovation, and maybe it'll prove a watershed moment. Tierno Barry still hasn't scored the goal. Beto still hasn't had one since the 30th of August. So it's only inevitable that these players are gonna be linked, but obviously this was slightly different because Everton are just one of a clutch of clubs. Maybe Toney is looking at a way out of Saudi Arabia, because I think the major stumbling block would obviously be that financial side. I think how do you get him out of Saudi? Make it sound like he's trapped there or something. He's on huge wages, which
$400 a week,
in his gold cage. So I think that it's how you do the deal. I think that'd be the major issue. I mean, look, we might go on to this. The other strikers who Everton are being linked at, nobody's sort of like a proven goal scorer in the way that Toney is. At Premier League level, he's been quite prolific, really, and so he's sort of a different level in terms of being the finished article and being the pedigree compared to the other ones. I mean, I'm talking about Joshua Zirkzee, who obviously we've got a piece coming on now. He's another one who was linked. His record in the Premier League doesn't stack up anywhere like Ivan Toney. So I think he's the sort of player who would excite fans if they could do a deal. It's just there are obviously significant hurdles which would have to be overcome for this to be done. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would obviously be. It wouldn't be the most straightforward of deals. But in terms of a player, I think people would be more or less be a consensus that I think Evertonians would be excited by that sort of prospect of that kind of player to come to a club.
Obviously, Paul Chris has talked about the financials and obviously huge amount of money that he's on in Saudi Arabia. Dave Ollie, with a comment here, says, Toney on loan for the rest of the season would be my choice. I kind of agree. I feel like if this deal is going to happen, the only way it's going to happen is it's a loan deal.
Yeah.
And it could suit both parties, whether it's Everton. Obviously, I know other clubs are linked to him, but I don't think there's any suggestion that he's like desperate to get out of Saudi. But from reading between the lines, he was obviously in the first England squad under Tuchel, and then maybe he thought, great, I'm still in Saudi, but I'm still getting picked for England. Now, I don't think he's been picked for the last two. No. So now he's panicking a little bit, thinking, right, well, I need to move back to the Premier League to show that at least within that 6 months I can prove myself to be a goal scorer, get myself on the plane to America for the next World Cup. So maybe the 5-6 month loan deal from January to the end of the season might suit Toney and might suit Everton as well.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense from that respect. So again, it would be a huge financial outlay, wouldn't it? Whatever wage, if there wasn't a transfer fee involved, there's still, I imagine, to be a loan fee, and like Jack Grealish, you'd be paying a large part. If not, I can't imagine we'd pay all of the wages he's reportedly on over there, but it'd be a large part. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because does Ivan Toney in Everton's side now improve Everton? Without question, is probably one of the biggest issues for Everton this season has been goal scoring. Toney is a better goal scorer than Barry and Beto. No question. That's not disrespecting either. Me personally, I like winning games of football. I quite like the feeling that we got walking away from Hill Dickinson on Saturday winning a game of football. If we would have had Ivan Toney against Tottenham, would we have won that game of football? Potentially, yeah, because I think he may have taken some of the chances that came his way. I suppose the other argument is it a long-term kind of signing? And would we be better kind of keeping faith with Barry? But it really depends on whether David Moyes thinks Barry is the long-term Everton centre-forward. As encouraging as his display was on Saturday, obviously jury for me is still out on that, but he's still fairly young, 23. It just depends on like your motivations, like where we want to go this season. You know, if we want to try and push for Europe, which, let's face it, I wasn't thinking about Europe until we, you know, for a good few weeks. But that win over Fulham, the table's very tight, isn't it? The table's very tight. If Moyes wants to get as high as possible this season, that's why he's probably signed a Grealish. That's why he's signed a Dewsbury Hall. If we want to develop a centre forward over time, maybe you stick with Barry. But
I think this brings up a fascinating point, which I'm going to rob from Gav Buckland.
Okay.
So he's always suggesting, or questioning, should I say, whether the recruitment team and David Moyes' strategy are aligned at this moment in time. I think it'll be fascinating to see if we do put in a serious bid for Toney, because you were talking about short-termism, long-termism. I think Toney will be the type of player Moyes will be pushing for, because he knows that Toney could be the difference from, like, say, a mid-table position to like getting into like Europe, like 7th, 8th, 9th or something like that. Whereas the recruitment team might still agree with that, but they might think the outlay for a loan deal, where we've already got a big loan outlay on Jack Grealish, they might think it's not the best scenario or situation for us to go for Toney. So I just find that fascinating of how it's going to work.
I think I thought about this a lot, like the point you and then Gav made as well. It's like you look at like Brentford. They've lost Toney, they've lost Vissa, they've lost Mbeumo, and they've just replaced him with Sade, and now Thiago's scoring goals. But I do kind of think at those kind of clubs, and this is, again, not being disrespectful, there's less exposure, there's less pressure. You felt as an Everton fan, like 1 win in 8, the pressure was beginning to build, wasn't it, going into Fulham? And I just think, the recruitment thing is really interesting, isn't it? While we should give Barry time, definitely, because he's a young player coming into the Premier League and he's shown promises, signs, particularly on Saturday. But I just think there's more pressure to win at Everton than there is for other clubs in the Premiership, Premier League, who can give players a bit more time. Because I'm not saying we're not a forgiving fan base, but we're a big club. We're a big club, and I think it's tough for Moyes, because Moyes is Joe's column, he did a Royal Blue column on Saturday, and it was a really good column, because it was explaining that Moyes was getting a bit of stick for not fielding young players or maybe showing more of them. But then he explained that in his previous time at Everton, he gradually brought them into the first team, didn't he? So it's a tricky one. It is a tricky one. I do agree with the point you're making there. It'd be interesting to see if we go for him. Yeah,
I mean, Chris, there are definitely a lot of pros and cons. I mean, personally, for me, someone who's as a fan, someone who works in the media and has seen Toney score goals, for me, I think if you can afford him, if he'll come, it's obviously a no-brainer. Yeah. But the cons are, as Paul suggested there, if he does come in, is that detrimental to Barry's development over the season? The only other thing I'll say is, we know previously, in David Moyes' first stint, that he utilised the loan market to great effect, didn't he? You know, some of Everton's greatest ever players, I guess, in that era, Moyes' signings were initially loan signings, and then have gone on to be fantastic players for the club. And I'm not saying that will happen with Toney. I don't think it will, but I guess from a short-term point of view, it could work. But I still think there are a lot of pros and cons.
Yeah, like say with the loan one, he could do. Maybe he comes over. You know, he falls in love with the fan base, and the way sort of Jack Grealish has done, and gives him. I mean, because as much as he's getting hugely rewarded playing out in Saudi, no disrespect, but I imagine it's quite sterile from an atmosphere point of view. It's certainly not going to be like the Premier League, and it's certainly not going to be like Everton. So yeah, I, from what I've seen of Toney, he seems a pretty passionate individual who, you know, wears his heart on his sleeve. And he's obviously cool when he's taking the penalties with the technique there, but you know, he could you know, he gets it. The old Alan Ball, once Everton's touching, nothing's the same. You know, it could happen. So like you say, Mikel Arteta initially came on loan, Stephen Pienaar, and then there's people like Landon Donovan, who were only ever short-term ones, but remain sort of cult status, really popular figures in the club. So yeah, Moyes has really utilised the loan market well first time round and used it to his advantage. So yeah, why not with Toney? And then if it goes well, who knows? We're kind of getting 2 steps ahead here, aren't we? And like he's playing for Everton, and then he's ended up signing for Everton. So, but you know, why not? Like I said, he certainly stands out in terms of what he offers compared to the other ones, because all the other ones you sort of taking a bit of a risk with, whereas I imagine from a risk point of view, you would hope he wasn't too high in that respect. You know, you're getting the proven article. But yeah, as you say, the other side of the coin is that what happens with the other 2 strikers there, because I guess 3 into 1 doesn't really go. That you're gonna struggle there. Maybe if Toney and somebody of that ilk came in, you'd imagine there's more chance probably of offloading Beto than Barry, given that Barry's only just come in the summer. He's Moyes' signing and he's younger, whereas obviously Beto is at the peak of his powers at 27 and has been signed by the previous regime. So if somebody came in, maybe that would be the case, but we are getting a couple of steps ahead of ourselves there, aren't we?
Well, we like to be optimistic. Yeah. Just some comments. Yeah. So Kevin Kraft says Ivan Toney will be an excellent addition to the squad. Plus, he's pretty ruthless as a striker. He will score goals, but most Premier League clubs are after him. I would rather we go back for Richarlison. I mean, we all love Richarlison, but is that someone who you would consider, Paul?
Yes. Yeah. I would. I thought
even with the
injury record.
You knew what I was going to say before I said it.
Yeah, that is a concern. But I love Richarlison. I'd probably let my heart rule my head in terms of that. I thought it was great when he came on. When I thought
he set the goal up, didn't he?
Set the goal up. He won every header in his box. Oh, it's this. I was just thinking about why you were both speaking then, and I kind of remember Moyes was saying in the summer, wasn't he? He was talking about Everton were going for a lot of plays and they were getting knocked back because
he admitted that, yeah.
And I wonder whether that's part of his why he met. Well, I know we're kind of suggesting he wants to sign Ivan Toney, but we'd imagine if his name dropped on his his table, like he'd probably be interested. I wonder if that's part of the reason why it's Grealish, it's Dewsbury Hall. It would be an Ivan Toney because he wants to get Everton back up there. So next summer and the summers to come, we're more of an attractive prospect. So he doesn't have to go through what he went through in the summer, because clearly we went through a lot of players and there were a lot of rejections, weren't there? Taking our affection for Everton aside, you probably can understand that because we've been battling relegation, haven't we, for a number of years? And I just, yeah, as the comment said there, I think I do understand. We have to look at we've put money in Barry, but I want to win a game. I want to win games of football, and it was nice to win on Saturday. But there's loads more games this season we would have won if we would have had a striker who was like Toney.
Yeah, I think this is just a guess, by the way. So it's just my assumption. Moyes is obviously technically running out of time. He's not going to spend the same years as he did in his first stint. So he's going to want players who are ready now. And I think that was my point about the alignment of strategy with the recruitment team and Moyes. Daniel Barton says, I can imagine Toney is living like royalty in Saudi Arabia. Would he give that up? The only thing I'd say to counter that, Chris, is that the motivation, as we probably discussed, is to get back into the England team. So that kind of appeals to me. On a short-term basis, it's probably his last chance to make a World Cup squad. So at least he took a lot of criticism for going over to Saudi, and fair play to him. Me personally, I've got no issues with what he's done, but he's probably seen the writing on the wall a little bit out of the last 2 England squads. Let's get back over to the Premier League quickly and try and work my way back into that England squad. So that appeals to me. Yeah.
I don't think the Saudi lifestyle is going to be an issue here, because it all seems to be coming from the Toney end in terms of putting out the feelers for, like you say, a Premier League return in the hopes of boosting his England World Cup chances. So that's not an issue with me. People talked about there, I've seen the comments coming through, if there's a Champions League team coming from him, well, they think he might not come to Everton. Well, that might be the case. You can't compete, can you, in terms of somebody's going to offer him that might. But also, I don't know if sort of the way that David Moyes went to Liam Delap. I mean, that didn't quite come. Obviously, that didn't come off. But I know people who were close to that deal. I know people who were close to the Delap camp, they were very impressed with the sales pitch that David Moyes put up. It's not often that he goes on the record before he gets a player when he's talking about another. But obviously, Delap was available because he had the relegation release clause, so it's not like he was disrespecting them in that respect, and that might have also played a part. Yeah. But it's very unlike David Moyes to have such a public courting of a player like he did with Delap. And okay, he went to Chelsea because they did offer Champions League football, and they had his old Manchester City youth coach in Maresca. He was in charge, so he knew him. They were probably the two main factors that swung him. He was very impressed with the sales pitch that Everton put forward. So what I'm saying is, okay, maybe there are Champions League teams coming for Toney, or maybe people talk about the London factor. I don't know how much that would play into it. But if David Moyes can say, we're going to make you the main man, look at this, Jack Grealish creating chances, and Dyer's creating chances now, he can bring something out of nothing, Kieran Dewsbury Hall. And, we just need somebody to get on the end of those. You're perfect for that, even. And you could give him that sales pitch, say, look, you could be a hero here. It's a historic season for the club, and the first season at Hill Dickinson Stadium, crying out for a hero. We've got Jack Grealish. Get you. You could, not saying it's definitely going to happen, but that's the pitch you could put to it and say, look, that's all you need. You could get loads of chances here. We're creating all this. We just need somebody to finish him, and that's your forte. So if David Moyes is interested in him, and I understand that there was interest back in last January when he first came in, so he is a player he rates. We know that. Whether he wants him now or not, that's another point. But we know he does rate the player. So yeah, I'd be saying, look at all this. You could be the main man. That's how I'd sell it to him.
Moving on then, Paul will talk a little bit about transfer priorities during January. We know it's very difficult to get a player in. That's why maybe I think the low market might be the way for us to go. Even then, the low market can be a bit of a struggle. What is the priority for you? Obviously, we're talking about Toney, who's a striker. Talk about the difficulties that Beto and Barry have faced. But I just feel like it's a weird one. Like, priorities just seem to be changing week by week. 1 minute, it's like, well, we desperately need a striker. Next minute, well, we need a left back. And then next minute, we need a right back. Don't get me wrong, we probably still need all those positions, but focusing entirely on January, really.
Oh, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I think it's only as the season's gone on, like you've just said then, that you realise we did a lot of business, but we realised there's still holes in the squad because of the amount of change that happened in the summer, and the fact that to kick on we're going to need even better players. And I think I was happy to see Garner come to right back, because I think at games like at home to Fulham, I'd like us to be a bit more. We should be adventurous. You should be on the front foot, and I think we can sacrifice Jake O'Brien. Maybe at Old Trafford in just under 2 weeks' time, we might go back to O'Brien being right back, and I'd have no issue with that. I think a right back. How long have we been saying this for? That if it's January or the summer, we have to get a right back. Like, there's no question about it. The left back situation's interesting because I think Asnu is very much a development player. That's okay. We understand that now. Then you've got to question whether Mikalenko is your long-term left back, because his contract's up at the end of the season. Is that right?
Mikalenko, yeah.
Yeah, so they're two, but I think the big one is a centre forward. Yeah, I think you brought up Delap then, and I think Delap would have been a no-brainer, wouldn't it? For 30 million, a lot similar price tag to Barry, but Premier League ready. Physically, up to speed straight away. And I think that's why Toney, if he is of interest, he should be of interest. If he's not of interest, he should be of interest, because he should hit the ground running, shouldn't he? And I think that's what we're missing. I think the fullback situation's got to be sorted, if not in January in time. I think Joe and yourself write this a lot. I think Branthwaite would make such a big difference to the team, because I do think when he doesn't play, we could do with a number 6, because we're quite exposed in midfield. But I understand that's because the back line doesn't have the pace that it has when Branthwaite's available, because you can push up more. But I think it's just goals, isn't it? It's goals. Even on Saturday, I still think with a striker, I think we're missing something down the middle, and I think that's a striker. And I'd be okay if, as you said, if Beto went out on loan. I like Beto. I know he's a trier, but if you said in January Beto went out on loan and Toney came in, I'd take that.
Interesting. I never really thought about Beto going out on loan, just with the only two strikers, and that, at certain points of the season, Beto's been the one that Moyes turned to. He's almost been the main striker, but Barry seems to be pushing himself in front of Beto there, which is, you know, is all good. Chris, I mean, some comments here, so I kind of agree with them. John Jones Toffee Man says there is never a finished article and it will always be a rolling change scenario. And a very similar comment, just I guess written differently. The Blue says we aren't big enough to buy the best players and we aren't small enough to give them a pressure-free environment to grow. I mean, that probably kind of hits the nail on the head, really, doesn't it? There's been countless players over the past couple of years where we've spent big money on them, but they're just not quite ready. The pressure's been on. And they've ultimately failed because probably the handling of them hasn't been great. And I'm probably looking at more of the striker situation that we've had over the past couple of years.
Yeah, like you say, it's a tough catch-22 situation to be in. But I remember Ben Godfrey saying, and he said rightly so, when he moved to Everton, he could feel that expectation to win that wasn't at other clubs that he'd been at. And that's only right. I mean, we go on and on about how big football clubs are and, you know, the fact that Everton haven't won a trophy now for the longest period in their history, over 30 years. But rightly so, that expectation remains there when you're playing for Everton Football Club, that you've got to deliver. So maybe, like I said, it's okay, scoring goals for these upwardly mobile team. You know, your Brighton and Hove Albions and Bournemouth of this world who have done great and are really well run, but maybe doesn't have that same sort of expectation from the crowd that you're going to get at Hill Dickinson Stadium, and right so, and obviously playing in front of the biggest regular crowds in the club's history now, and the fact that there's over 50,000 people in there every other week. So yeah, in terms of finished, you could say, well, there's never the finished article, but I think what I would say with Tony is he's proven Premier League quality, isn't he? And unless he's, I think he's doing all right. He's still banging them in Saudi, but unless he finds that drop off, you know, trying to get back up to Premier League speed too much, you know, he's as close as you can kind of get, and for somebody like Everton to, you know, proven Premier League quality in that respect. But in terms of the strikers over the years, and it's kind of been, we've discussed it before, Moyes' Achilles heel, but I think a big part of that is because he never had the big money, and that's obviously with the strikers, isn't it? They're the ones who you have to pay top dollar for to get. So, you know, even though he'd broken the club transfer record 3 times, he kind of always proved elusive for him, didn't it, in that respect. And kind of ironic, really, that Martinez got Lukaku as soon as he left. So yeah, it was an ironic situation, that wasn't it? I mean, you could just argue that. Well, could you argue that Lukaku would never have played under a Moyes team? Is that being a little bit too harsh? I don't know. I think we can. I'm not saying that, because we've the level of consistency that they had, I'm sure he would have been attracted to coming to Everton there. So yeah, I think it's a bit. It would be unfair to suggest he'd never have come and played for David Moyes, because David Moyes obviously had a much better long-term track record than Martinez. But yeah, Martinez was the one who got him through the door, and they had that great first season. And to be fair to Lukaku, Lukaku kept the goals going, but the team around him wasn't delivering worthy. I mean, you could argue it was probably the strongest squad that Everton have had in the Premier League era. So the fact that they had back-to-back 11th place finishes, that was a great disappointment, how they fell off. Lukaku just seemed like the right time, right moment, and it was a loan deal as well. Another one on loan, yeah. They did well to get one. You know, obviously, like you said, the season-long loan event to prize him away from Chelsea the year after. That was a real coup, I thought. Okay, just moving on, we'll very quickly talk about Tyler Dibbling. I guess Everton are taking the slow, steady approach with Tyler Dibbling. Yes. Would you consider that to be sensible, or would you have liked to have seen more of him, Paul? I think I go back to Joe's Raw Blue column, and it's just a really good point. He can't get in the team because Everton's 2 best players are in his position. Like, Ndiaye and Grealish are just going nowhere. Yeah. The question then is whether we should have spent the money this summer when it could have maybe been used elsewhere. You know, if we had probably known Ndiaye would suit right, because we're in the summer, we were like, right winger, where's Ndiaye going to play? We've got too many left-sided players. Then Ndiaye looks brilliant on the right, as he did as much on the left. Sorry to interrupt, but that was my argument the other week, as we were crying out for a right midfielder with pace. We got Grealish in, so where'd you fit in Ndiaye? Yeah. He goes on the right, and then we go and spend 35 million on Tyler Dibbling.
Tyler Dibbling might come good, and we're probably going to need him in AFCON.
Yeah.
We're going to need him in December when Ndai goes to AFCON, but it did seem like it was a little bit thrown together.
It might come back to the point you were saying earlier where the recruitments, they're trying to have to think long term, and at the same time hit the, our players, we can hit the ground running, so we have a lot better season than what we've had recently. I suppose at the moment I can understand that one because Njai, he's just not getting in the team. He's not getting in the team above Njai, and he's not getting in the team above Grealish. We did something for the website and the paper today in terms of players of the season so far, and both of those players were named, and rightly so. So I think we just got to have patience with Dibbling, and as Chris rightly said, in December, sadly, we're probably going to lose Njai for a number of games because Senegal are probably going to be one of the stronger teams in the tournament, aren't we? I don't want to go back to Sunderland because I know you've done this, but I'd be slightly alarmed if Njai goes and Dibbling's not getting on then, because what's the point of that deal, if you know what I mean? Because he's I like McNeil. I feel for McNeil this season because he's been a good player for Everton. I do worry about his future. I think he may have to move on to get game time, but the longer term future is Everton's Dibbling, isn't it, really? So I'd hope when Njai goes, he gets a chance and to show what he can do. And if he doesn't, McNeil might take his place. But yeah.
I mean, Moyes was speaking about Dibbling the past week, described him as a quiet lad. He's obviously trying to ease him in, I guess. But there was a bit of an assumption, I guess, after the full Sunderland game, shall I say, is that maybe he wasn't, Tyler Dibbling has not been working as hard as he should be in training. That's just based on the fact that obviously Moyes picked McNeil over
and said that
Dibbling.
was down to his training,
So I don't know. I mean, from Paul's point of view, I guess we're going to have to see Tyler Dibbling at some point, because other than Tyler Dibbling and I guess Ndai, who's going away, there's not really a natural right-sided player. As Paul mentioned there, you could play McNeil on the right, but he's not a right winger. I'd be worried if Dibbling's not up to scratch and up and running, and then he starts thinking, we'll put Charlie Alcaraz on the right during Ndai's absence. That would be a big worry for me.
Yeah, I think we'd have all expected Dibbling to have played more by this point, wouldn't we? We're not saying he was going to come in and play every week, but we'd have all expected to have more minutes under his belt by now. It's a curious one. As you said, we spent all summer saying need a right winger. Probably we need two right wingers, you're saying. Yeah. So maybe you should have perhaps paid more consideration to it, because I know he'd not done it for Everton before, but Iliman Ndiaye did regularly play for Senegal on the right wing, so it's not totally alien to him. He'd not done it for Everton, but so on the one hand, he's done really well adapting there, switching wings and being just as effective. In some ways, he's more effective in that now. He's now providing crosses, and he wasn't doing that so much last season. He had all the goals, but no assists last season. So with Ndiaye getting a mix of that now, so that's only a good thing. Just how it played out with Dibbling, because obviously Everton were interested, and Southampton were asking for a lot more money, weren't they, at the time? They had 50 million plus add-ons and all kinds. And my understanding, it was Southampton who went back to Everton to initiate those talks again. It was Southampton who came back to Everton, so maybe Everton, I think it was understand one that David Moyes fought long and hard over, as far as I know, and was he right? And then maybe he fought. I mean, it's interesting. He said last week, didn't he? That he didn't think it was a big. It seems like he was Everton's biggest signing of the summer, although it was undisclosed. But it was put to him the size of the fee, and he said, I didn't think it was that big a fee. In these days in the Premier League, and I guess compared to what some people are paying, it's not, but it's still a big chunk of money for Everton. So. As he pointed out, there were other players he's had in the past who weren't necessarily hitting the ground running. Even Leighton Baines, who was an established Premier League performer when he came to Everton, the most expensive defender the club had signed at the time. He took a while. Obviously, he was preferring Lescott in that role, a bit like with Jake O'Brien now on the other side. So he pointed all that out, and he even used Lescott as an example. I think when Phil Jagielka first came to the club, he was playing him in different positions. It wasn't cut and dry that he was going to be centre half, which is incredible as that seems now. So I just wonder, like you said, I think the proofing will be in the pudding in terms of, like you say, when Ndiaye goes away to AFCON, that'll be the acid test really, in that if Dibbling is not getting minutes, then you really are maybe question marks. But at the moment, as the manager said, he's got the two main men going forward ahead of him, and maybe that's the big block for him getting the minutes in. Now, you've got to understand, although he's had a good year in the Premier League with Southampton, albeit a Southampton team who struggled, it's been a big move for him in terms of, obviously, he's from Exeter originally, and going to Southampton is still part of that kind of neck of the woods. Whereas he's coming up to Merseyside, he's still only 19 years of age. It's a big move for him there. So I just wonder, is he maybe taking him a little longer to sort of adapt off the pitch? Perhaps I'm only speculating, because I think Joe Thomas pointed out to me that he'd been to Chelsea when he was a kid, and he ended up going back from there. I mean, it's no big secret that obviously he was much younger even then, that he got a bit homesick. So I just wonder whether there are off the field issues there with him just settling in and stuff like that. So yeah, I think the big test will be when Ndai's not there. If he's still not playing, maybe ask questions. But at the moment, maybe still bedding in. But I think one thing we can all agree on is we'd have all probably imagined that he would have played more minutes by now.
The Blues says, I'd rather Dibbling not play until he's ready. Our fans will kill his confidence if we throw him in.
He's not looked really ready when he has played, has he, to be fair?
Emma says I assume she means Southampton, they seen us coming.
It's a good job it wasn't a 50 then, wasn't it?
Got to give him a chance.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll finish off now, but it's obviously the international break, so no game this weekend, but we will be back next week with all the preview stuff, all the preview content. Two big tests, I guess, very quickly after the international break: United and Newcastle.
Ooh, yeah.
I'll put you on the spot. How many points you think we'll get, and how many points would you be happy with? I don't know if that's the same question, but
I think we can get, and I'd be happy with 3. I think, like, if we can win our home game against Newcastle, I'm afraid, like, my hopes of going to Old Trafford have been low for many years, and even in recent years when they've had a really poor United team, we seem to have been turned over or had our usual 2-0 defeat. And to be fair to United, they do look like they're picking up a little bit lately. Newcastle, I think Eddie Howe's a great manager. I think he's done a great job. I think Newcastle got a really strong team, but they're not playing too well, are they, at the moment? I think they're below us in the table, aren't they? They're conceding goals, 5:30 kickoff. I'd hope we could actually be a good atmosphere there, shouldn't it? We seem to play Newcastle a lot at night, don't we?
It's always been a Thursday type of game.
That was mad.
The past couple of years.
So I think we just got to keep. We've got a good record at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. I think if we can get 3 out of the next 2, 4 would be fantastic, wouldn't it? But it's 2 hard games, those 2 hard games.
He's right. It's going to be 2 tough games. United are kind of not back up and running as such, because they did have a good run, and then they have dropped a couple of points. So it's not out the question that we could go there and get a result, whether it's a point or a win. I'm kind of in line with Paul before he even answered. I did think to myself, out of the next 2, it'd be great if we got 3, because you could go there and go, well, stay undefeated and pick up a point from each, but you've only got 2, so you're more than happy with the 3 points out of the 2, really.
Yeah, it's fair enough. It's just interesting.
Sorry, Danny Church says I'll take 4 points. So would I.
Yeah, 100%. Either way, 3 United or 3 Newcastle or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because maybe he's not been weighed down like we have by years with Everton. But I was saying that Joe Thomas keeps telling me, and he came out. He said it on record, didn't he? On Monday, how Everton are going to turn over one of these teams who David Moyes hasn't won away from. You know, infamously in his first spell, didn't he? He never obviously won at Arsenal, United, Liverpool, or Chelsea, didn't he? So he keeps telling me, they're going to win one of these. Well, it is well overdue, but yeah. I mean, I remember even when Amorim was struggling last season, was it the 4-0? Or was it that last year? It's all a blur now. The time's been there, been battered. Yeah. So it is ridiculous. It's got to change. Only won twice in the Premier League era. One of those was when David Moyes was Manchester United manager, and one of those was in the very first week of the Premier League. Paul remember?
Mo Johnson scored, didn't he?
Yeah, and Valzishka. So
3-0.
Yeah, I don't know if you might have been. I don't know if you remember that one, Ian. But yeah, it was a long time ago.
I remember the Oviedo one.
Yeah,
very quickly, I got a funny story to tell you about that. I was in a pub in Old Swan back in the day when obviously it was still illegal to stream Premier League matches.
Where's this one going?
So there was a load of blues in the pub, and literally the ball gets crossed over to Oviedo, and it cuts.
Oh,
It literally
It was like
cuts.
a Dan Gosling-esque
I'm
moment.
not even
Oh.
joking. The feed went off, and then everyone's like, "Oh my god!" Obviously, didn't like think it was like a clear-cut chance. Anyway, it come back on within about 10-15 seconds, and Oviedo had already scored. He's running away celebrating, and everyone just went nuts. So that was like there's a
Best
little
goal you
story
never
there.
seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
best goal I've never seen. Yeah.
good stuff.
Okay, we'll finish off just very, very quickly. Kevin Kraft says Man United are there for the taking, and fingers crossed they are. He also says that nice comment, this Kevin, so I appreciate it. He says this is the best. This podcast is fast becoming the best Everton podcast on YouTube. So I appreciate the positive comments. Scheduling wise for the rest of the week, so I think we are going to do a Friday show, even though there is an international break. There's not going to be a live show on Monday because I've got a special guest coming in, hopefully. So that is going to be recorded on Monday and it's going to go out Tuesday. I don't want to say who the special guest is in case it doesn't happen. So that is the
Fingers
schedule.
crossed.
Friday should be a podcast, and the next one after that will be Tuesday, and then we'll be looking ahead to the obviously United game with all the preview content for that. We haven't got a game that weekend. It's the Monday after, isn't it?
Yeah, we seem to have loads of Mondays this year, haven't we? Like,
Yeah.
But at least then Newcastle will come fairly quick after that.
Which is not good for me because I play football on Monday. I was supposed to.
oh yeah, no, I'm in the same group, aren't I? I'm in the
You will
same
be
WhatsApp
dropped for
group,
that
yeah.
one, Chris.
Yeah, well, I just hope they can get a game on without me because it's struggling. But yeah.
Any final thoughts then, lads, before we shoot off?
No, just I say nice to go into another international break with a win, isn't it? You know, feeling positive again.
Yeah, I just banged the drum again for my Waterstones event in May. I've seen a few people been talking about going to some event there, but yeah, get yourself. I'd love to see as many of you as possible down at Waterstones. Tuesday the 25th of November, 6:30 in the evening. Michael Ball's going to be there. Our very own Sam Carroll will be master of ceremonies. So love to see us.
Like our own, doesn't he?
Love to see as many as you possible. The trick is you've got to get those tickets in advance, so we can't just turn up on the night. So just go onto my socials. You can book the ticket, and love to see as many of you as possible. And you can come and say hello.
Okay, that is all for today's show. As always, give us a thumbs up and give us a like on the YouTube channel and give us a subscribe as well. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Paul Wheelock and Chris Beesley, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.